What is going on, guys? In this video, we're going to be automating the complete recruitment process from very start all the way to the very end. This is a massive game changer for me because this literally won back hours of my life every freaking single day. How we're going to be automating recruitment is by using n8n. There's actually a ton of different workflows going on here. You can see that it's broken down into 5 different steps. And so we're going to be walking through how to build this out from very start all the way until the end. Essentially how this works is that you're probably going to be recruiting in one of 2 places. Chances are you're going to be finding candidates on Indeed, which is one of the best job application sites out there, or maybe you have a form on your website where you just get people to fill out a form to apply for particular roles. Now, how this n8n workflow works is that we're essentially going to set up a 100% automated custom Google Sheet dashboard. Now, this Google Sheet dashboard is going to track the progress an applicant takes through the recruitment process. So every single stage of hiring somebody will be tracked, will be automated. So how this works is that as soon as we have a candidate inquire on Indeed, we are going to get an email personally saying, hey, you have a new candidate, and we are going to send that candidate a message saying, hey, thank you for inquiring about the position. We'd love to essentially move forward with you. Okay. And as soon as we do that, we're going to send in that email a link to, and when I mean that message, I mean here, there should be a link to an onboarding form, because chances are if you're hiring on places like Indeed, they're not going to give you a lot of information right away. So you have to collect that yourself. So on this onboarding form, we're going to ask all the questions that we want to, such as what's the salary potentially, or how many years have you been doing the work that you've been doing, or what's your resume, or a link to your portfolio, or whatever, right? And so in a nutshell, as soon as they fill out this form, we are going to have this question or onboarding column here. It's going to check it off. So we have our client or our recruit, Grace Elise here. Once she fills out that onboarding form, this box will be automatically checked. Okay. Now we can potentially automatically reject her if she doesn't meet certain qualifications. So for example, maybe her expected salary is too high, or maybe she hasn't been doing it for enough years. If certain qualifications are not met, then she'll be automatically rejected. At this point in time, we have a manual intervention here where I actually like to go in and take a look at the results submitted just to make sure that I give a thumbs up and I say, hey, this person should probably move on to the next step in the recruitment process. All I have to do is hit this checkbox. At that point in time, this third workflow is going to happen here where we send them off an email to a sample test. So for all of the people I hire, I always ask them to submit a test. So for example, if Grace Elise is a freelance video editor, a good test for her would be, hey, can you edit this video for me? Because I want to see how good your skills are before I end up spending 60 minutes on an interview, when I'll know probably within the first 10 or 15 seconds, or when I see your portfolio, whether I want to work with you or not. So why spend the 60 minutes when you can just get them to test their skills beforehand? And so as soon as I click this, it's going to send off another email to that candidate, essentially saying, hey, can you please submit a test? We'll also provide a form here where essentially they just upload the test results. That could be edit this video for me. Then they upload that video into a Google Drive link and then put that Drive link here. Once that's done, then this box will be checked off. All I have to do is come in, look at the test results, and think to myself, and just either approve it or reject it. And if I go ahead and approve it, next what's going to happen is we want to schedule an interview. So as soon as that happens, we're going to send off an email to cal.com. Cal.com is a booking calendar widget where essentially people can book a call with me. As soon as they've scheduled their time, it's going to check this box off, at which point in time the interview will be scheduled. Then we'll jump on the call. And if I like the person I can just click hire here. As soon as I do this, you can do whatever it is you want. Usually I'll send off a contract, or I'll invite them into Slack, or whatever the case may be. All of these steps are completely automated, and they're all being taken place in this workflow. This is a simplified version of this workflow, and it can be definitely more complicated. I would make sure to apply this to your business, but tweak it for your use case scenario. As always, every single blueprint I have on my YouTube channel is 100% free. If you guys want to download it, it is in the description down below. All you have to do is download it, come to these three dots, and then import from a file and upload that blueprint straight into your n8n environment. With that being said, just before we get started, guys, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button if you like content like this, because I'm sure you're going to like tons of other videos that I'm releasing all the time on how to automate your business. Let's get into this right now. All right, so let's get into this. The first thing is we need a trigger here, okay? The trigger is going to be us receiving new recruits on places like Indeed or places like our website, right? This is just my personal website up here. I have a form, people can fill that out to apply to a particular position that I'm recruiting for. In this video, we're going to be mostly focusing on Indeed, but I'll be talking about how you can do both. So let's kind of circle over to Indeed here. I'm not going to spend too much time on creating an Indeed account or whatnot, or posting a job, just because it's pretty self-explanatory. But what I specifically want to focus on is the only metric that matters when publishing a job. So when you go and you publish a job on Indeed, you can do tons of different things. You can customize however you want: the job title, the company, how many people you're hiring for, the country or the language, all of this kind of stuff. The only thing that actually matters here is that when you create a job, you need to make sure under the application updates that you're being notified every time somebody inquires for a position. So if I was to edit this, essentially this box here needs to be checked. And the reason why is because how we reply to people automatically is by being notified by email when somebody actually inquires for the particular position. That's really important, because otherwise, if we don't check this off, we're just gonna get notified daily on like 20 people applying. But we need to be notified every time somebody applies, because this is how we send them automated responses, just like we see here, right? So Grace Elise, we're only able to actually send her a message automatically because we're getting notified every time somebody applies individually. So when you go ahead and create a job on Upwork, just make sure that you're sending an individual email each time somebody applies, which means that the first part of this workflow is going to be when we receive an email in our Gmail account, and it could be Outlook if you're using Outlook as well. So we'll go ahead and create a trigger where we wait to receive emails from our Gmail account. And so if you guys haven't gone ahead yet, you can create a credential. So you can just create a credential, sign in with Google, and then you're going to be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And then we have polling times. What this means in a nutshell is that this is the time interval that n8n will check to see if there's new emails. So do you want n8n to check every single minute to see if there's new emails? Do you want it to check every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes? Usually you might think, okay, the shorter the time interval, the better. The only problem is that if we go over to n8n's website over here, the one thing I'd be careful with if you're on the cloud version of n8n is that you are billed on the workflow executions, and you only get 2.5K per month. If you were to run this every single minute, that means you're going to be burning, essentially, in a nutshell, 1440 workflow executions per day, which is insane. That means that you're going to burn through this literally in a couple of, in like 1 day or 2 days. So it's better to slow this down and not do like maybe every hour or so. I think that's way more realistic. That way you're only doing about 12 or 24 per day. Awesome. So that's the next thing. And then we want to make sure that this is unchecked. Simplified just means like how much information are we getting back from the email, and I don't want n8n to determine for me what to send to me. I want everything to be sent to me from that email. Otherwise, it's just going to hide fields from me. And then lastly, we want to set up a filter here. And so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and include in here a filter as well. So, oops, I'm going to go ahead and delete that, and we can have filter here, and I'm going to search for something. And in a nutshell, what we want to do is we want to search for Indeed emails coming through. So if I take a look at my Gmail here, I have this email from Indeed, okay, saying that this person inquired for this particular role. Now, why I'm pulling this up is because inside of our n8n account, we don't want to just essentially have this run on any email. We only want this to run when we find emails related to Indeed and related to people applying for our positions. Because if we run it on every single email, when your friend asks you for coffee tomorrow at 2, it's going to run this workflow, and we don't want it to run on every email, just on recruitment emails. So back inside of our workflow, what we're going to do is we're going to include in the search Indeed, and then I'm going to do subject colon. Just make sure you have the colon here, which means that we're essentially searching based on the subject, and we're going to pull in keywords from this subject line. So I'm going to say implied on Indeed. So now I can choose the search to include the word Indeed, and the subject is going to say applied on Indeed. We can fetch a test result here, and it's going to pull in a particular person. This looks good to me. If I just do a quick search and I type in Indeed, now we can see that there's tons of different, we can see that this is in fact person that inquired through Indeed. So here we go, Grace Elise Pelzer. I'm going to pin this data up at the top right here. What that means is that instead of me having to always wait for an email to come through, it's just going to take mock data. And this mock data I've saved as this particular candidate right here, Grace Elise Pelzer. And now I don't have to like call my Gmail again. It's just going to automatically run this on mock data every single time, which is going to be really, really nice for me. Now, the next thing that I want to do is essentially I want to pull out the particular job position that they inquired for, because there's no, like when we're getting an email back, there's no perfect way to like pull out, for example, the job position, because the data is unstructured, meaning, and when I mean unstructured, it's mean like it's a blob of text, right? This is what we're dealing with here. So we need to figure out a way to pull out that job position they inquired for. And so how we do this is we're going to use AI to be able to pull it out for us. We're going to use OpenAI in this particular example, and we're going to message a model. First things first, in order to get started with OpenAI, you need to actually create a connection, and you'll need to get an API key here. So you can head over to platform.openai.com. If you haven't done so already, you can create an account, go into dashboard, and then we have API keys over here on the left-hand side. And all you have to do is create an API key. So I can do test over here, create key, and then copy this, paste it right into this API key section here, save, and we're good to go. You will need to have a balance of approximately $5 on your account in order to make this work. This is the only thing you'd actually need to pay for in this workflow, I believe. But just keep that in mind. Moving on, what we'll do is we will select the right model that we want to use. And looks like I actually connected in the wrong account here. So I'm going to use 4.0-mini here. And I'm using mini just because it's a bit cheaper to actually use. That looks good to me. And more or less, in a nutshell, we're going to create 3 different messages. One will be system, one will be user, one will be assistant. Now, I think that OpenAI deserves a Guinness World Record for probably the worst labeling in humanity by calling this system message, user message, and assistant message. I don't think they could make it more confusing. But I think n8n does a great job doing this. You can think about it like they have input and output here, and then they have the parameters. The parameters here are essentially the system message, okay? And then the input message here is the user message, and the output here is the assistant. This is like the one-to-one equivalent of this, and that's exactly how you can think about it. User is, what are we putting in? What are we asking? What's the question? The assistant is, how are we outputting the data? What's the format? What's the structure? System is adding additional context to this prompt to make it what we want it to be. Okay, perfect. So now that we've done that, we can go ahead and add an assistant message here. You're an intelligent bot capable of pulling out the job title from an email subject line. Perfect. This is just giving context as to what the hell is going on. Over here, we're actually going to provide that subject line. So if we scroll down to the bottom, what we can do is pull in this subject line here. And this is the text here. So freelance video editor, and this person applied on Indeed. I'm going to put a message here. Please pull out the job title from this email subject line. And then lastly, we have the assistant message. We need this to be formatted properly. So we're taking unstructured data like text here or so on and so forth, and we need to structure it properly. So how we do this is I'm going to say, please output the data in JSON format. JSON, this is JSON format on the side here. You can think about JSON format. Essentially, this is exactly what it is. It allows us to like pull things from the side and insert it in here. This is the backbone of n8n, how it works. So we need it to be in the same structure like we can see on the side over here. So how we'll do this is we'll say, please output the data in JSON format with the following structure. And then I'm gonna just create this myself, and I'll show you how you can create this yourself for other kind of data structures if you're unfamiliar with this. All I'm going to do here is type in job, and then I'll paste, I'll just create this JSON just like that. Let me just, yeah, okay, perfect. In case you're unfamiliar with JSON and you don't know how to do this and you want to add new things to it, you can just go over to ChatGPT. Okay, and you can ask it when this decides to eventually load in 20 years, can you please create JSON data for me with one thing, job. It'll be a text field. So you can literally just ask it to create this for you and just copy this and then paste it back in here. And because this is sample data, we can just remove this. You could also leave it in there, it doesn't really matter, but yeah, that's essentially in a nutshell. We can go ahead and test this step. And now we have the data over here. Only thing is that this formatting is kind of weird. It's actually formatting it as text. And all we need to do to structure it properly is just check this box here. We'll test it again. And now the data is coming back cleanly. So we can actually use this. Perfect. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to dump this data into Google Sheets here. And so how we're going to do this is by adding a row. Now, this is going to be in the description down below for you guys to copy in the blueprint section here. But if you want to like pause the video and just copy it yourself, it's just all of these variables or all of these things in the header here with orange background. Okay, cool. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to choose Google Sheets here. And with Google Sheets, we're going to add or update a row in Google Sheets. And so from here, we just want to make sure that we connect it, first of all, into our account up top here. So if you haven't done so already, you can sign in with Google. And then secondly, what we're going to do is we're going to choose the correct sheet. And so this Google Sheet here is called n8n recruitment. So I'm going to choose that from the drop-down menu here. And the sheet here is going to be sheet 1, which is down here. You can think about this like the tab. And then all we really have to do is just bring all of this data and map it in, which is just dragging into the right field here. So if we hover over schema, it's just going to be a bit easier. We can start by the first and last name. So we have the name here. So I'm going to drag the name in here. Only problem is it's actually pulling in the person's, it's pulling in the person's first name and last name. In order to pull this out properly, you can just literally follow what I'm doing here. I'm going to do a JavaScript function on it, split, and I'm gonna open this up just so it's a bit easier to see. So I'll just restart here. We'll add dot split. And what this is doing is we're gonna find a space here, okay? And we're gonna separate the name by the space. We get the first name and the last name, and we wanna grab the first name. And how we do that is square bracket 0, square bracket, and this will pull in the first name. If we put a 1 here, this would pull in the last name. What this is it's the index. This is just the position. Like, is it the first name or is it the second name? And so all we want is the first name here. And so this is just a quick way to essentially grab information from text. We can essentially separate the text based on a space here, and then we can pull in the first thing before the first space or after the first space by putting the position or index here. Cool. And moving onwards, we can do the same thing for the last name as well. And so we'll paste in the last name. You can see that this is different than this because we just need to change this to expression over here. And now it's gonna work. And similarly before, we're gonna run the split here with the space in between to pull up the last name. Cool. Now we can pull up this job here. Essentially, in a nutshell, we can get the job from the OpenAI model where we grabbed the person's job. We're gonna paste it in here. And that looks good to me. The only thing that I wanna do past this is I want to enter in when this person was added into the system. So we can flip this over to expression, and I can enter in curly brace twice. And anything within this is like, we can put in like custom functions or code or whatever. I know that might sound intimidating if you've never done this before, but we're not actually doing anything crazy here. We're just scrolling down to the bottom and choosing today. And this has a value of this. So it's like literally just pulling in today as a value. Other than that, that looks pretty good to me. The only other thing that maybe I want to do here is I want to generate a code down here. And so what I mean by this is like when somebody, when we go to like send off a form to this person to enter in questions, we need to make sure that when they fill out the form, we link that form back to the person, right? And so how do we make sure that when somebody, like, for example, does the onboarding form or completes a test or schedules an interview, how do we know that we update this row instead of just creating another row down here? And the answer to that question is that we need to have some unique value to tie them back to. It's going to be unique code. And how we can do that is by creating some random digit like this to essentially link them back to. And usually you'd use an email because everyone only has one customized email. Nobody can ever have the same email. The problem is that the Indeed email that we're dealing with here is going to change to their normal email. We're not going to be always emailing them through this because they're not going to check Indeed. If we do this, we're not going to have an easy time hiring people. So we need to find their email and we're going to match them based on a code here. So let's go ahead and let's create this number. So in our particular Google Sheet here, in the code section, I'm going to flip this over to expression down here, and I'm going to create a custom variable. Essentially, this is going to be math.random, and it's going to create a random number for us. Okay, and with this number, we can multiply it by whatever string of digits we want here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this in another function here, which is math.floor. And this is just going to round it to the nearest decimal here. Okay, so that it's going to be a whole integer. It's not going to have like decimal points here. And we can choose however many of these 9s we want, but I'm just going to go ahead and choose a bunch of them. And so this is how we create a completely unique code here that we can then associate with this person. So that again, anytime that they're filling out a form, we can just give them this code and we will use this as a unique identifier so we know who it is, so that when we fill out a form again for Grace Elise, we know to update Grace Elise and not update or create a new client. So it's going to be a bit more clear in the next step here Oh, actually, that looks good to me. And so we can go ahead and test this out. And we're drawing an error here. So the only thing is we just need to make sure that we select a column to match on. And what this means here is that we need a column somewhere in this spreadsheet through column A to whatever, where if it exists already, we need to update it. So what I mean by that is like, we don't want to have 2 Grace Elises on here. We just want to have 1. And if this person doesn't exist, then we create them. If they exist, then we want to update them. But in order for us to update them, we need to find the contact. And we find them on a unique value. This unique value will be the email here because they're always going to have the same Indeed email. So we'll just select the column here and we'll choose Indeed email. And now we can go ahead and test the step. And it's still not going to work because we haven't added in the Indeed email. So we can go ahead and add that in. And that's just going to be this field down here, which is going to be from value 0 address. And now for the 3rd time, it should work. Beautiful. Okay. And we'll notice here that we didn't create somebody because they already existed. But if I just entered in some random gibberish there and I tried this again, now it's going to create another person here because this email doesn't exist because we modified that email. Awesome. Lastly, we'll go ahead and we'll send off an email. We'll send a message and we're going to communicate back with this person through Indeed by messaging them right here. And how we message them right here is by just essentially replying to the initial email. As long as you reply to this email, which has the output of this, if you send a message back to this person, it will literally just go ahead and reply to them automatically here. So it sends an email, Indeed will grab that email and reply to them here on your behalf, which is really, really nice. So we can go ahead and set this up. So in the send email option here, we're going to choose 2 and we can map in this person's address here. And we can just put a subject line like in response to the freelance video editor email or position. And then we can put in whatever message we want here. And so this message, should be text. And it's gonna be like, hey, and we'll put in the person's first name from the Google Sheet. So, hey, Grace Elise, and delete all those extra spaces. Man, that just irks me. I don't know about you guys, but like every time I see like double spaces in there, it's like there's nothing that annoys me more in automation than when I scope that out. So in here, we'll just send a message. I'm actually just gonna copy my previous message just to save a bit more time here, and then we can go through this together. So I'm gonna say, hey, person's name. And again, I just wanna enter that name in properly here. Hey, first name, thanks for applying for our whatever position. And so I'm just gonna re-enter this in here. Cool. At company XYZ, the next steps are to fill out this onboarding form. And so we need to create an onboarding form for them to fill in additional contact details. And then we have this code here to enter in. And again, this code is how we're going to define who it is. We could also use the email technically here too, but I just think it's a bit cleaner to use the code in this instance. So let's go ahead and let's create this form. So I'm going to do this all from within the exact same scenario or workflow within n8n, just so it's a bit more clean and visual. So in order for me to do this, I'm going to add another trigger up top here by hitting this plus button here. And then we'll go down, circle to add another trigger. And this time we're going to do on form submission. And this is going to be like an onboarding form, and we can add in whatever we want here. I'm actually just going to, yeah, I'm gonna whip through this pretty quick. First name, last name, what else, other fields. You can add really anything in here that you want. Like, for example, I wanna make sure I capture their email here. And maybe we can take a look at their resume if you wanted to. With the resume, this would be a file upload. And essentially, if they're submitting a binary file, I'm not going to go over this in this video, but like you just have to upload this to Google Drive and then grab a link to it. And then portfolio link, we could have that in here if we wanted to. Oops, portfolio link. And this is something where you could just put like, please add in a Google Drive link in here just to provide more information. We could do like years of experience, expected salary, and that's good for now. Cool. Years of experience, and lastly, expected salary. Perfect. And this could be like a number here, just so they're not putting in like text, if you will. And so we can go ahead, test this out. This is the form that we want to direct people over to fill out. So I'm going to just stop this for now, and we can grab this URL. And now if I were to add this in here, now we're going to redirect them over to the form here. Okay. And sweet. So let's go ahead and try this out. Instead of just messaging the same person again, I'm actually just going to send this to myself just so you guys can see in my particular email here what that looks like. And here we go. Now we have access to this form here. And so I'm just going to click on this, but before I do that, I just need to make sure that this is actually in test mode here. And then if we go back and click on this link, it should open up that form, and voila, now we have this form. Okay, pretty cool stuff. Now this is the onboarding form, which means that when somebody fills this out, we now want to be notified every single time by when they fill it out, we check this box is true. Okay, so let's kind of build this out together. So first things first, I'm just going to fill out this form so we have some basic information here. And I'll put in like a sample link here in 10 and 1 or whatever. And the only thing that's missing here is we need the code, right? So I did not include that on here. So I actually need to stop listening to this, and we need to add one more field at the bottom, and this is going to be a code field, and this is going to be also required as well. We can go ahead and test. We're going to refresh the page, enter in the details one more time. And then from here, if we were to like grab this code from the email that's sent out to them and then enter it here, we should actually update this record on file now, which is right here. We can just see we have 2 of this person. So we'll submit this, and we've received this data. So now that we've done this, we have our form submission. First things first is I'm going to pin this data so that we don't have to keep submitting this form over and over and over again to actually receive information. And I also want to turn off this module because I don't want like multiple different triggers acting at the same time on the workflow. And with this Google Sheets here, we essentially want to duplicate this, but put it down here. And I could go in, I could like add another Google Sheets, or I could just duplicate this by hitting these 3 dots and duplicating it. And then we can have access to this module again, just to speed up the workflow. And again, we need to make sure that we actually map this out. So as you can see, it's a bit tedious because we're gonna have to do this quite a few times. So first things first is, let's just delete everything in here. And then we can pull in the person's name and last name, and we can do resume if we wanted to here, although this would probably be binary data and we'd have to upload this to Google Drive first and then get a share link to put in here. But I just wanted to kind of show that this is possible, but it would just add quite a bit of time onto this build for me to roll it out. Years of experience could be down here, expected salary over here, and of course the email. And this email is going to be different. Like they're going to put their real email here. And that's why we have two columns, one for the real email, one for the Indeed email, because we don't get access to the real email right away. We only get access to the Indeed email, and then we have to onboard them and ask them for their real email. And so that looks good to me. Other than that, maybe the portfolio link here. And then with all these other things, I just want to delete this here, because if you actually have notes here, it's going to overwrite it with an empty field. And I don't want to overwrite any of the data here with an empty field. And so that is more or less it. I'm also going to delete this job field, and we're going to have a column match here based on this code here. So whatever the code was that they entered is going to be what we matched on. Now, a couple things about this. If somebody is not capable of entering in the right code here on the form, chances are you probably don't want to work with them anyways. So this is a good filtering mechanism. And it's not to say a bad reflection on anyone. It's more just like, if they didn't spend the 2 seconds to copy the right code in, they probably didn't care enough about your job to actually be really interested in it, right? People that focus on the details like this would care about the job that you have to post and would be interested in joining. So this is just another filtering mechanism that you can have here to make sure that the right candidates that actually care about it are entering in. And so other than that, what we want to do is mark this true box. This box is true here. And so all we need to do is just type in true. When you have check boxes here, the values are either true or false. So if I was to hover over this, it's true. And if I uncheck it, it's false, right? So those are the two values. So if we want to signify that somebody has in fact filled this out, we just have to put true there. And then lastly, we can have like a rejected column here. We can choose whatever we want. Maybe like we want to reject somebody if their years of experience is under, let's say like, I don't know, 3 years. We'll flip this over to an expression over here. And then we will hit curly brace, $ if. This is just boilerplate right now. And this is just going to be a conditional statement. What this means is we have a conditional statement. We're checking if something's true. We go down one path. If not, we go down the other. So in a nutshell, over here, we check if the years that they selected is less than 3. If that's the case, then it's going to go down path A. Otherwise, it's going to go down path B. And what this is saying is that they are not rejected here because they have 3 or more years. And this is saying over here that they are rejected. And so for them to be rejected, this would have to be equal to true, and this would have to be equal to false. And remember, the reason why this is the case, it's just a conditional logic here. We're just checking to see if a condition is true and then routing it down one of two paths. And how this practically works in n8n is you have condition here and then path A or path B. And so the condition that we're checking is the years of experience here is less than or equal to 3. And if it's less than or equal to, then it's true. Otherwise, it's false. And true here means that it's rejected, and false means that it's not rejected. It's throwing an error because we actually need to wrap these in text fields here. And then we can give this a shot. This should be rejected because the years of experience over here is 1. So let's go ahead and take a look at the rejected column here. And we can see right there, it's rejected true because the years of experience 1 is less than 3. Okay. And you'll notice that it comes in as true and true. How we get this to nice looking checkboxes is we just insert in checkboxes here. We make sure that the value is not set to false, but it's set to nothing. And now we have a checkbox with no value. And we can just duplicate this everywhere. And then we could just expand this down the list. Cool. And if we try this again, but this time with the checkboxes, now we can see that it's actually rejected here. Okay. And so that's how we do checkboxes. So that's the first thing done, is now we have checkboxes here. Next, I want to make sure that if I preview this person's information here, like their portfolio link, like the years of experience and everything, then I can, and obviously this is just boilerplate or whatever, like this is definitely not what somebody would actually submit. Could you imagine if somebody was like actually inquiring for a job and they're like, expected salary is 1, years of experience 1, portfolio link 1? You'd be like, that is a definitely reject. That's an immediate rejection on every single level. And so we're making good progress here. The next thing is we just want to make sure that we manually review it, the questions that they submitted. And how we review these questions is, well, all the details here. And you can have as many questions on this form as you want, and you can make this as exhaustive as you want. And those are kind of the questions. You could have something like the resume here, the portfolio link, years of experience, expected salary, so many different things. And then if they're good, when we check this button here, we want to send out a test for them to complete. And so how we do that is we're going to come back to our n8n workflow. We're going to deactivate this scenario. And now we're going to add another section here. And this is going to be another trigger. And this time we're going to choose on webhook call. Okay. And what's going on here is we have this third trigger now. And this is going to watch for any changes here. So anytime we do anything here, like checking these boxes, for example, it's going to send data over here. How we do that is through creating a custom script. That sounds very complicated, but it's very easy. And we're going to walk through the whole thing together. So in a nutshell, what we're going to do is we're going to, and I've already set it up for this, so I'm actually just going to do this in another sheet here just to kind of give you guys, like, actually go through the whole thing from the ground up again. So this would be like mock n8n script. So we're going to head over to extensions here, and we're going to go to app script over here. And again, all we're going to do is copy and paste. As long as you can do that, you're good. This is going to be in the blueprint section down below. So, and it's free. So you guys can just copy this and then paste it in. So we're going to copy this, delete everything in this untitled project, and then paste it in. All we have to do is change this URL to the webhook. So I'm going to delete everything here and keep these 2 quotations right there. And then we're going to grab this URL here. Okay. Copy that. Like you can see, I'm furiously copying on the side there. I think that might be the most copies I've done in n8n. I feel like I've set a new record for myself. I'm pretty proud of that. We'll paste it in here, and now we're going to send data to here. The only thing that we need to do, so this whole script is just about sending data from Google Sheets over to n8n when anything changes, like me doing this or that or this or whatever. The only thing we need to do is just tell it when things are changed. And so we need to set up something called a trigger here. And this trigger is just saying when we update anything on Google Sheets, we want it to change. Now my face is blocking this, but there's this massive unavoidable blue checkbox or blue button at the bottom right. And we don't need to change anything here. All we have to do is, I'm just gonna back out and try this again. We don't have to change anything except for this select event type, and it's going to be on edit. And it looks like this is causing an error, so maybe I didn't save this script. So let me just go back and save the project properly. Just make sure I have, in fact, that script in here. Okay, cool. And we're going to try it again. Just make sure to always save it, which I think was my mistake. And now we're good to go. And we can choose on edit here, and then this should work now. When I click save, I always get an error down here. I think it's like a pop-up error. Maybe it's like my ad blocker over here. But if you get this, the only thing you have to do is click save one more time and it's gonna work. And then we just need to log into our account, and it's gonna throw up this error saying Google hasn't verified this app. And that would be correct because I'm not a verified Google app developer. I just created a script. If you wanted to verify yourself and have this be avoided, then you would just have to like register yourself as a verified app developer on Google. But because I'm not gonna do that, I'm just gonna go ahead and click allow, advance to advance and allow. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, anytime I update anything here, it's gonna fire the n8n. The only other thing is we just need to change this HTTP method to post. What this is essentially saying is like, we're defining how data is received. Post is essentially creating something. And like a get is retrieving. You can delete is deleting, put is updating. You can think of it like a CRM is probably the easiest example. Post is creating a client, delete is deleting a client, put is updating a client, get is retrieving a client. Because we're creating data, we're creating data from Google Sheets, we're creating it in n8n. We want to make sure the HTTP method is post here. We'll go ahead and listen to the results down here. And then if we would like to update anything, then we are going to receive the results over on the right-hand side here. Okay. And Google Sheets does have like their own trigger here where you can just do this from here. It's just that this is probably the worst integration I've ever seen in my entire life on n8n, and I'd highly recommend staying away from this because it's not going to help you solve your problem, at least at the time of this recording. So that's more or less it. Now, just because I created this on some some secondary sheet, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. And instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this into my actual sheet here that I just that I created here, so that we can continue on with this example. And again, I'm just making sure there's those quotations here. I'm going to paste it in and save it. And now try it one more time, where we listen for the event, we update it, and we're getting data on the right-hand side here. Perfect. Okay, beautiful. Now, the one thing is that when we receive this data, what we don't want to happen is what I just did. We don't want to be like typing random gibberish here and then it fires and it starts executing emails and stuff like that to clients. Like, that's obviously bad news. So we want to filter down and chisel down so that we're only sending data if the right conditions are met. So what I mean by that is like, we only want it if we're checking off boxes, like screening, for example. So if we approve the questions and we say, hey, these questions are approved. If we check one of these boxes, that's good. That's a good action. But I don't want it to fire off data if I add somebody's first name here. And so the main columns here are these three. Once we screen somebody and we approve them, we send a test like write me a blog, and then we approve that. Or when we hire people, we do certain actions. We can also send one for rejected as well. And we also want to make sure that the value here is true. We don't want to fire it off if we unselect this. So if I was to unselect this box, I don't want it to fire off. I only want these to fire off when I select it as true. So those conditions must be met. Right rows or right columns, and the value needs to be true. So in order to do this, the first thing that we can do is we can set up a filter here. And that filter is going to check for the actual value that we updated here to be equal to true. And we can test this step and see that it was discarded, meaning that it wasn't true because this value here is not true. So if we were to go back and test this step again, and this time we select approved here, and more importantly, true, now it's past the filter, which is great. It's been kept. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna save this data from the webhook just so that we don't have to go back and forth all the time. And then more or less, we just wanna add in a switch statement here. What the switch statement is doing is we're defining, what action are we doing? did we click the screening is approved? Did we click the test is approved? Did we click the hiring? All of these are going to do different actions. If we're screening them, the next step is to send a test. If we approve the test, the next step is to schedule an interview. If we hire them, the next step is to send a contract. So we have different actions at every step, and we need to make sure that we send them down the right path. So we're going to run a switch statement, which is going to check for the column that we checked it off, which column we checked. So we can grab this column start button or start here, and then we can choose the right column. Now, it's important that you see, like you can see here that it's by the letters, but in n8n, we have to put in the number associated with the letters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So screening is column F or 6. And we're getting an error here. It's shouting at us being like, this doesn't work. And anyways, it's getting mad. n8n is getting mad. And obviously we do not want n8n to get mad at us. The reason why is because the data types are different. This is expecting text, and this value, or this is a number here. This column start is number. We can tell because this is like the number symbol. This is text symbol, number. Data types have to be the same. So we could either convert type when required, and then it would work, or we could choose the number is equal to 6, test this out, and now it's going to go down that path. Similarly, we can do the same thing for the next two options here, and this is equal to, and I'm just going to copy this in, and we have to switch this to expression down here and paste it in. This is equal to 8 for column H, and then 10 for column hired. So we could switch this to number is equal to expression is 10. Okay, so now we have all these paths set up. And so if it goes down this path, meaning that we more or less if we went down column F here, we want to make sure that we send off the test, right? And so this test could be, in this instance, because it's a video editor, we want to ask them to edit a video for us and then upload that to Google Drive. So we'll send off an email. I'm going to copy this Gmail module here for this and connect it in. And we're going to send an email to the person's email. So we'd first of all map in. If we go all the way to the bottom here for Google Sheets or this webhook, we'd map in the person's email down here. I'm just going to hard code this so it's only sent to me just for test purposes. And so we could put in I'll do freelance position next steps test, and we can just send off a message to the person as well. We'll map in their first name here. Hey, Jono, or whatever the person's first name is. Okay, perfect. And I'll just delete everything here. Thanks for finishing our onboarding. Everything looks great. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. The next steps are to complete a video editing test. Please submit your results here. And of course, you'd want to include in this email, like, here are the requirements. And another thing that I do is, like, you could have multiple people, multiple different positions that you could be hiring for simultaneously, and switch out the forms and the emails. That gets a bit more complicated, and I just want to keep this video short and brief and sweet, or as short and brief and sweet as possible. But even with a workflow like this, it's pretty complicated in and of itself. But yeah, here are the requirements, and we can go ahead and we can create that form just like we did before. I'm going to duplicate this, and we can copy this link in here and paste it in here. So now they have a link where they could submit the test. Awesome. And one of the only things that I would put here is make sure to upload your results to Google Drive, and 2, make sure to set the link to public so I can view it. Okay, cool. So now they get a link on where to put it. Last thing is the code here. We just want to enter in that code one last time so that we can attribute their submission to the right person, because we're first going to, once the form comes in, we're going to see, okay, who is this? We're going to find the person based on their code and then update the remaining row based on that. So that looks good. And then with this form, we can go ahead and edit this. So this form is going to have just like 2 fields associated with it. It's going to have the link to the results on Google Drive and the code. So this is going to be Google Drive test results link. And then this will have the code. If we were to test this out, and I just activated this workflow here, this is more or less what it would look like. Person gets the email, they put in their code here, and then they put in the Google Drive test results here. So like, here's my Drive link / my test, and then they put in the code that was emailed to them, which would be like this code here. And I'm just going to manually do this to save us a bit of time. But yeah, that's more or less it. They hit submit here, and then it would fire off this form. And very similarly to before, we just update Google Sheets with the results. Okay, cool. And with this, again, all we're gonna do is we're gonna delete everything here. And we're going to add in 2 things. The test, oops, not the test was approved, but we wanna make sure that the test was complete and marked as true, so that when they fill this form out, this next stage here is completed. And you can see that now it's like we're getting a very clear picture as to where people are in the funnel as they're going through it. And then the next thing here that I want to add in is a link to their test. So over here, we can add like another column, and it's going to be test link. And we'll paste that in here so that we can actually view the results that they, I'm just updating it by clicking this button here so that we can get this field added in here. But now we're going to be able to view it. So we're going to add the Google Drive test link here and then test this out. And again, it's going to update the link here because we found the client or the applicant based on this unique ID here. And also now the test has been marked as complete as well. And so at this point in time, you'd come in and be like, okay, this person submitted their test. We could even notify ourselves too if you wanted to. Like you could send a message to yourself. This could be like a Slack message, for example, where we notify ourselves, send a message or a text message or an email. I'm just gonna leave this as is, just so you guys get some ideas here as to what you could do. Same kind of deal with this as well. We could send ourselves a message when we get somebody onboarded if we wanted to. And then very similarly to before, we can now approve the test if we liked it. So we take a look at their link over here and we'd go to it, we'd watch the video or whatever the test is, and we'd either click rejected or we'd click scheduled interview. Very similar to the before, we could also have that rejected column here. We could add another route. So if they actually were rejected, we know how to handle it properly. And so this could be numbered is equal to, oops. This is going to be is equal to number 4 because D is the 4th letter in the alphabet. So we could add that in here. Let's go ahead and quickly do that. We'll add in the column number is equal to 4, which means that if they click here, it's going to go down the rejected path. And we could just send off an email here too. And from here, we can make this really simple, short and sweet. Hey, person's first name. thanks for inquiring with our position. Unfortunately, it's not the right fit at this time. All the best, Jono. Something like that. Okay, and we can move forward and do this approved section here, which will be column H. And now we want to schedule an interview with them. So once we approve them, now we send them our calendar invite for them to schedule an interview. So very similarly to before, we're going to duplicate this email and attach it in here. And then this time, just like before, everything stays the same. We just want to change this result up, and we're going to say, hey, thanks for finishing our test. The results look great. The next step is to schedule an interview. Here's my calendar. And we need to include this link so that they can book an appointment. And there's lots of different things that we can do here. But personally, just with n8n, like you could use Calendly, for example. And, you know, I've used this in the past, love it. It's great, it's easy. But the only problem with using something like Calendly is that for you to integrate into n8n, it costs money. And I want to provide a free solution here. And for that reason, I think the best free solution is something called cal.com. And so this is a one-to-one substitute for Calendly. It's just that it connects into n8n for free. So we're just going to use this just to lower the barrier to entry for anyone who want to do this without spending money. So we'll go ahead and choose an account, sign up. And cool. So we're in. We'll just go through the onboarding process here. Everything looks good. Obviously, you'd want to like set up your own account and all that kind of stuff and put in, you know, when people can actually book you and the time ranges you're available and all that kind of stuff. But for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to go ahead and skip this and move through this as quickly as possible. In order for us to, first of all, there's two things. We need to send the calendar booking link, and then we have to receive new appointments that are scheduled. So the first thing is that we can go ahead and we can send this link. Okay, so we're going to copy this link here, or whichever one you want to copy. We're going to paste it into the email here. And I want to take it a step further because I don't want to just paste this link, because if we do this and we open it up, we need to tie this back to somebody. And we could tie it back by the email here, but you can't hide this email field in cal.com. And I think that's a bit risky because maybe somebody's like, actually, you know what? I want to bring in my business partner for this, or I want to use a secondary email, or maybe I mistype it or whatever, or whatever. So we can do it by the email. I think I'm just going to add in another code down below here. How I'm going to do this is I'm going to go into edit this particular calendar, and I want to, let me see here. We're going to go to maybe advanced here. And yeah, so in advanced, we're going to go down to booking questions, and we're going to add a question at the bottom, and it's going to be a short text answer. And I'm just going to type in code here and code. This is really important because this is how we can pass this code in automatically. What I mean by that is just keep this in mind. If I add this in here and I refresh the page, okay? Now, when I go to fill this out, oh, I might need to, I need to save it up top here first. And now the meeting's been saved. When I refresh the page now, and I choose a time, now this code has become available to me. But if you guys recall, there was this identifier here. What this means is that if I were to paste this in and I type in query parameters, which is code equals whatever equals key value pair, and I'm going to explain this a bit in greater depth, but now we can pass in a value here. So all of a sudden we can take this query parameter and paste it in here. In a nutshell, how this works, I'm going to back up here, is that with URLs, you have something called key value pairs. Now, this portion of the URL, everything up until that question mark is the actual like URL. Now, this is the page. This determines the page that you land on. And if you were to misspell this, it would cause an error here. Then what happens is you have this question mark right here, as you can see. Everything after the question mark is additional context that you provide the page with. And this comes down to key, which is code, and value pairs. You can name these whatever you want. You can have multiple of them. What's going to happen is we're going to find the key code, which was this particular identifier here. And then we're going to automatically populate this field with the value that we place in the value section. So this field here. And we could do way more than just this. Like we could do the email as well. We could do the name. So just as an example, if we come back here and type in email equals test@gmail.com, and we separate the key value pairs by the and sign, now all of a sudden we can pass in a different email, we can pass in the code. And why this matters is because we want to make sure that we pass in that code through n8n to make this more streamlined. So we'll pass this in, okay? And now we have the code here. Let's go ahead and delete this 1, 2, 3. And we're gonna find the code associated with that person here. We're gonna paste it in. And what that means is it's gonna grab this code and automatically add it into the calendar booking link. So when we send this, they don't even have to enter the code in, it's just automatically gonna be brought in. It's a nice little tip there. And so we can save that. Cool. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna test this email out. And so it's not gonna send over. What we need to do is we need to load in data here. There's currently no data, so it's not gonna populate, I think. So how we can do this is we're gonna deactivate that workflow and activate this one. And we just wanna make sure that this goes down the right path. If we were to test this right now, it's just gonna go down path 1. How we change it to path 2 is we can edit this mock data in the trigger, and we can change the column start to 8 here. And that is the condition to run down this second path here. If we open this up, column start is 8, then it should work. We can go ahead and test this out again. And now it's sent off the email. So let's go and take a look. Now we have this code, okay? And we can book a meeting through cal.com. Next thing is that we actually want to be able to receive that calendar invite. So we'll add a module called, the module cal.com, and we're gonna choose when a booking is created. We're gonna fire this off, and we'll connect in our cal.com account, and we need to enter in an API key. How we get that is by going into our settings down below here at the bottom, and then we go to API keys, and we create something. And I'm just gonna call this test or whatever. And then we have our key, and we can paste that right into the API key section here. Save it, and we're good to go. So now, if we were to test this out, when we book this call, we're gonna receive the data here. So we'll test this. I'll book the call, confirm. Then on the right side, we'll receive the data in. Sweet. So now we just want to update, and I'm actually just going to make sure I pin this data again. I'm going to make sure that I update the Google Sheet here. So now we're going to do exactly what we did before, where we're going to make sure the code is entered in. If you guys recall, we passed that code in to the URL parameters up top here somewhere. And we should receive that on the input section here. So it's just gonna take me a couple seconds to find it. Okay, right here is the code field. We have the value right here. So we can pass that in. Sweet, so we got the first one here. And then the next thing here is we're gonna delete these values. And I just wanna make sure that the interview scheduled is equal to true. that's more or less it. We can test this out, and we're going to see that this interview scheduled is equal to true here in a second when we test this out. So we go back here. It should be this field there. Okay, there we go. And this is something we'd manually click. I just didn't click that yet, but we can again track the progression. That'll send me an email too. And then lastly, when you actually show up for the interview and you click this, then you could do whatever you wanted to. You could onboard the person, you could send them a Slack invite and let them know, hey, you know, I want to invite you to a channel or whatnot. I'm not sure if that would necessarily invite them to your organization, but more or less that's it in a nutshell, is how you can like automate the process of onboarding people. I'm not going to go into extensive detail on how like to create contracts and all that kind of stuff, but I think you get the natural flow of how this works. The only other thing here is maybe you have a notification when somebody books an appointment with you. You should automatically get it through Cal anyways, but yeah, that's more or less it on how we can automate the whole process of recruitment. And now instead of having to log in every time to Indeed or log into your website, grab these people, manually add them, they're automatically added in here. All their information. They're either automatically rejected or they're automatically sent to onboarding. We just quickly screen them. If we like them, we approve them. If we don't like them, we reject them. If we screen them, then it's gonna send them a test. And from there, they're just going to submit it. And when they submit it, it's gonna be test completed. It's gonna get to this stage. They've submitted their test. In this case, it would be a video editing test. And then you take a look at that test through the test link that they submit over here on the far right side. And then if you don't like it, you reject the person. If you do like it, you approve that test. And then this is automatically going to schedule an interview on cal.com. And then once they have, or it's going to automatically send the email to schedule the interview. Once they have gone ahead and scheduled that, then this is going to be checked off. And then after the interview, you can just check off this and do whatever it is you want. And so that's taking like a really, really labor intensive process and automating the whole thing. The one thing that I'll point out here is that you'll notice that there's only one email going out here and there's no text messages or whatever. So I use Go High Level to do this kind of stuff. And I use Go High Level to do this kind of stuff. It's a CRM, automation CRM. So if I just type in like Go High Level, I use this because you can create deeply nested workflows where it's like, hey, if person doesn't reply to email 1, then the next thing is we send off email number 2. And then if they don't reply to email number 2, then you send them email number 3 or a text message or a WhatsApp message. And obviously the more messages you send out, the greater the likelihood that somebody is going to see it and respond to it. And so I think that to get started, Google Gmail is a good option. But very quickly, if you're serious about getting the highest conversion rate possible of people in the door to down the funnel, you'll want to use a system that sends out way more notifications than just one email here. I just wanted to really simplify it into like one kind of visual workflow so that when you guys went through it, you're like, okay, this makes sense. I understand how to do this. But I would take this application and I would pretty much do the exact same thing. The only difference that I would do is I would just swap this out for an email software or an email text message software. Now I use Go High Level to do this, but you can use whatever it is that you want. And once you do that, then you're pretty much set. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you found value in it. And so just before leaving today, guys, I wanted to point out, if you guys are looking to learn more about automation, highly recommend taking a look at my school community up here. We have about 324 members and we launched this about a month ago. This is a place where you get access to all of my other blueprints, over 100 plus videos that you can go through at your own cadence, whether you want to learn things like n8n or Go High Level, make.com, or you want to take these skills and start finding ways to monetize them and get access to all the blueprints that I built myself that scaled my business to, you know, many employees and a pretty big business, then I would highly recommend taking a look at this. I think the most important part is actually just the calendar here, where we have weekly calls. Right now it's 5 calls per week. So the problem with automation is that, you know, things come up, you hit roadblocks, something that could take 5 minutes ends up dragging out to like 10 hours. And sometimes it's just more effective to jump on a quick call, get an answer so that you can move forward and not get stuck on problems that hold you back. So that's kind of the value here. Thank you guys once again for watching. Really appreciate your time. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.